I'd like to invite all legislators to come to the chambers so that we may begin the contracts portion of the Rules Committee. Just for those who have submitted slips to us, there is no general public comment portion at the committee meetings. We have a general public comment portion at the full legislature, half an hour to an hour before the meeting, the business portion of the meeting starts. But there is no general public comment portion at the committee meetings. If you want to speak as to an item, you can speak as to an item, but there's no general public comment. So I just wanted everyone to know that. And again, I don't have item-specific slips at this point. So again, if you want to speak as to an item, then you may do so, but there's no general public comment on committees. I'm going to call the Rules Committee to order and ask Legislator Lafazan if he would lead us in the pledge. Mike, could you call the roll for the Rules Committee?
Yes, thank you, Presiding Officer. Legislator Sheila Bino. Legislator Delia Dirigi-Witten. Here. Ranking Member Kavan Abrahams. He's here? Okay, thank you. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Here. Legislator Stephen Rhodes. Vice Chairman Howard Coppell. Howard, thank you. Chairman Richard Nicolello. We have a quorum, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said, we do the contracts portion of the Rules Committee first. So I'm going to call all of the contracts that will be considered. A39, A40, A44. These are resolutions authorizing the Commissioner of Shared Services to execute blanket purchase orders or purchase orders between the county and Summit Handling Systems, Hempstead Ford Lincoln, and Geocom, Inc. E116, E118, E119, E120, E121, E122, E123, E124, E125, E126, E127, E128, E129, U6, and U7. Resolutions authorizing the county executive to execute personal services agreements or amendments to personal services agreements between the county and Leventhal Mulaney, Louis Joes, Vincent McNamara, Be Ready Fishpine, West Group, WSP USA, Berkman Hennick, Lyro Engineers, Savin Engineers, Greenman Peterson Inc., Discover Long Island, Wildlife in Need of Rescue Rehabilitation, and the Nassau Pops Symphony Orchestra. Motion by Minority Leader Abraham, seconded by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell to put those items before us. Next item is E83 of 22, a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an amendment to a personal services agreement between the County of Nassau and One World Judicial Services. We need a motion to untable. Legislator Rhodes makes that motion, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. All in favor of untabling E83 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that contract is untabled. And then, lastly, before we start considering the individual contracts, we need a motion to table E129 and E123 of 2022. There are issues with the IG with respect to these contracts that have not yet been resolved. E129, E123, yes. Motion by Legislator Bino, seconded by Legislator DeRiggi Whitten. All in favor of tabling those two items signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. First contract to be considered is with the Department of Information Technology. It's A44 Geocom, Inc.
Good afternoon. Joe Jacovina, Deputy Commissioner, Information Technology, A44 2022 Geocom, Inc. This is to authorize and award a purchase order to Geocom, Inc. to provide professional services to update information on the county's Geographical Information System, known as GIS. The county currently uses state data and county data based on the application. This project will provide conflation and data cleanup of the state and county data, creating a new, more accurate county data set. This data is utilized by many departments, including Fire Marshal, Police Department, DPW, etc. This purchase is based on a state GSA contract, and the maximum amount authorized is $224,309.25.
Can you tell us which departments this supports? Would you know offhand?
We use it for land record viewer and assessment.
Okay.
Uses this data. Firecom for dispatching. The police department uses it extensively. This is a combination of both county and state data. Again, as I said, depending upon the application. DPW uses it to track things from manhole covers to fire extinguishers, where roads are located, its cross section of roads, etc.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Nope. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Social Services, E84, One World Judicial Services.
Good afternoon. Darian Strong, Director of Child Support Collection and Enforcement. The contractor provides the department with personal service summonses in connection with paternity, local support, Uniform Interstate Family Support Act, abuse and neglect proceedings. The contractor also provides the department with personal service of summonses and complaints, excuse me, in connection with proceedings in Supreme Court, Surrogates Court, the request for a preliminary conference, subpoenas, orders so cause, petitions, and any other legal documents to be served in matters involving the Nassau County Department of Social Services.
Thank you, Mr. Strong. The question, I see that the contract expires December 31st, 2022. Is there an RFP out, or are they pursuing another contract at this time?
Yes, I believe this is an extension of the contract.
Okay. All right, but I mean that this is expiring in December, so.
Yes.
Do you have, what are the plans for going forward?
We're going to still utilize the same contract.
All right, so we could expect to see another amendment.
Yes.
All right, so I would just encourage the department to get that to us before the end of the year.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any questions?
So, if you don't.
Sure. Yes.
So, this was tabled a while ago, correct? A few months ago?
Yes.
Do you remember why it was tabled, anybody? I don't have it in front of me.
Yes, there was an issue with the CSCA in terms of the work that was being performed by the, by the outside contractor as to whether it was CSCA work or not.
Okay.
Right.
And that's been resolved.
And it's resolved?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, two contracts are with the Police Department. A39, 2022, Summit Handling.
Good afternoon, William Field, Inspector with the Police Department. First item is A-39-22, is to authorize and award a purchase order for a lift truck or forklift trucks for the Police Department. The lowest responsible bidder was Summit Handling, and the maximum amount authorized under this purchase order is $146,632. It is grant funded.
What is a lift truck?
It's basically a heavy-duty forklift made by Toyota that we'll utilize in our impound lots and anytime we process evidence related to vehicles. Okay. So they're able to move them around in tight confined spaces, damaged vehicles. They can move around. They can move around vehicles that we don't have keys for, anything like that.
Okay. Any other questions for this? Okay. No, thanks. Let's go on to the second one.
Okay. Item A40-22. This is to authorize and award a blanket purchase order for Ford OEM original auto parts for various Nassau County departments. Hempstead Ford Lincoln was identified as the lowest responsible bidder. The maximum amount authorized under this blanket purchase order is $2.65 million. It's general funds funded. The term of the blanket order shall be for 1 year with an option to renew for up to 4 one-year terms plus a 2-month extension, and that's it.
Good. All right, any questions on this contract? Legislator Ridgey-Witt.
I just note that the Inspector General seemed to have some questions. She was unable to locate the low vendor's response to the memo and the contract page. Can we just, if she's on the meeting, maybe we could just get, she's in the meeting. All right, if I could see that far. Okay. Maybe we could just, if this has been cleared up, that would be great. Jody, would you mind? Is that okay, Rich?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I'm sorry, Jody Frenzies, Office of the Inspector General. Hi, Stephanie. I'm sorry.
Hi, Jody.
Hi.
We just have in our notes from your office, I assume that you were unable to locate the low vendor's response to the memo in the contract package.
With respect to contract number?
A40-22, Hempstead Ford Lincoln.
Yes, I believe that issue that we put in the contract review statement was addressed properly.
And there was one other question that one of the vendor's principals failed to disclose all entities of which they are principal owners and or officers?
Yes, that was also addressed.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. I'm glad I was here.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Inspector. Good. Next contracts are with the Parks Department, starting with E128, Discover Long Island.
Good afternoon, everyone. Discover Long Island presenting an amendment number 4 to an original contract dated January 1st, 2015 for a promotion agreement. It's a 1-year renewal for the year 2022 for Discover Long Island to market Nassau County, serving as our tourism promotion agency under the Hotel Motel Tax Law. This contract allows for Nassau County to conduct another RFP for a tourism promotion agency. Payment is the formula that outlined in the tax law, which you're all familiar with, 66 2/3% of 25% of tax receipts received by the county. The estimated amount for 2022 is approximately $975,000.
Has Discover Long Island been providing services to the county throughout 2022?
Yes.
Even without the contract?
Yes.
Okay. What's the plan for next year?
We are in final review of a new RFP, and we hope to get that out in the next 2 weeks or so, and then bring before you our findings.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any questions on this contract? Legislator Ridgey-Witt.
Can I ask the Inspector General to return to the podium? I'm sorry. Thank you. I guess if these issues are resolved, like after the report is issued, it would just help us to save time, just to have the update. But
yes.
I know that you mentioned that this contract had exceeded the number of amendments allowed under the original contract.
Yes, actually, this, at around noon, 12 to 12:30, my office will send out a list of all of the legislative items that had reportable results, but they were then addressed.
Okay.
I hope that it went to everybody, but
Do you have it?
I,
Oh, great. Okay, so I'm working without that right now. We're trying to locate that. But there
I
was
can copy legislators, but I'm not sure you really want my emails.
I would take it, but I can't make that decision.
pleasure.
But, so as far as the one thing that concerned me was the vendor's principals failed to disclose the entity of which they were principal owner/officer. Has that
Yes.
been resolved? Okay, all right,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for this? We ready to move to the next contract? Yeah, okay. Oh, you do. Let's Schaefer.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you, Commissioner? Just one quick question. For the RFP that's going to go out, do you always do, is it a one-year contract you're seeking, or do you do beyond that?
I'd like to have it beyond, so that we can look to build something.
Right.
But again, we're in final review. We're looking at intervals so that we could renew it based on performance.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Next contract is U6.
Yeah, Nassau Pop Symphony Orchestra, presenting a contract for services with Nassau Pop Symphony Orchestra, Inc. This was a result of an RFQ seeking musical performances of various genres. I promise this is the last one for 2022 to provide entertainment in our parks. This is commencing retroactively to June 8th and will terminate on December 31st, 2024, with the option to renew for one more 2-year period. And again, this will enable us to not have to bring those individual contracts before you every year when booking our entertainment. It's for a one 2-hour performance at a cost of $4,000 performance, and it's funded by the Hotel Motel Tax Grant Fund.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, any questions on that? No. All right, next contracts are with Public Works, E123. I'm sorry, actually that was tabled. So the first one will be E125.
Good afternoon, Ken Arnold, Commissioner of Public Works. E125 and 126 are the same item, just with two different vendors. One's with Lero, one's with Savin. They're both contract amendments to increase the capacity for our on-call construction management contracts associated with road and bridge work. We're increasing the capacity by $1.5 million.
Okay. Any questions on these two contracts?
Okay. So E127 is also a contract amendment with Agreement Peterson, Inc. They are our road and bridge design on-call contract, and again, we're increasing the capacity by $1.5 million.
Okay. Any questions on E127? Nope. All right, thank you. Remaining contracts are with the County Attorney's Office.
Good afternoon, Brian Libbert from the County Attorney's Office. Sorry, I didn't hear which number.
E116. 11th Mullaney.
Very good. This is a contract with the law firm Leventhal, Mulaney, Blinkoff. It's for the services for the Board of Ethics. The services are being provided by Steve Leventhal. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer the same.
Just in terms of the effective dates, I mean, it terminates July 31st, 2022. So what is the plan going forward?
My understanding, based on discussion with the board's counsel, is that there is a process underway. I do not want to be hasty and speak to the result of that process without knowing for sure, but my understanding is that there is a contract headed the way of the legislature to cover those services, and that in between now and then, none have been performed.
Okay. All right, so since July, Mr. Leventhal has not been providing legal advice to the Board of Ethics?
That's my understanding, is the board has not had any official meetings besides to convene for the purposes of the procurement, which I just mentioned.
Okay, all right. Any questions? Sure. Minority Leader Abrahams.
I'm trying to understand, this is a retroactive contract that goes back 4 years and 4 months, correct?
Well, I would just say that that term retroactive contract legally is sort of insignificant, although I understand to the legislature it is important. But yes, it is an old contract.
Why would you say it's insignificant?
Well, to me, in the charter, that term retroactive doesn't come up, although it often comes up on the record over here. So legally, if you ask for my legal analysis, I'm not sure what the impact of it is, but that would be for you to determine, of course.
Oh, okay. So it's up to this legislative body or this rules committee to determine whether or not we pay a contract where the work started 4 years ago.
I don't know that that's under this contract. I guess that's a matter to take up with the county attorney's office, which I would be happy to take up at a different time, but I'm not sure that it's the issue of this contract. But that's my understanding of the rules committee's role.
Let me just make sure I'm clear. Maybe I'm not clear. Is this contract paying Ms. Leventhal, Mullaney, and Blinkoff for services that were rendered in the past?
Yes.
Okay, so for our purposes, for what we do on this legislative body, it's a retroactive contract because it wasn't approved before Mr. Leventhal or anyone at his firm provided the services.
Correct.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, the contract going forward is $60,000 per year.
That's not going forward. That is to cover the work that was completed in the time that the contract was not ratified.
Got it. But then there's a retro number, and by our calculations, it's $320,000.
I do not believe that's correct at all. I do not believe that Mr. Leventhal ever did that much work for the county. I will double check that, and I'm happy to do that, but that would be shocking to me. I believe that the number was under 100,000. That's just speaking off the cuff.
I think the confusion is the contract is for 60.
Correct.
But it has a contract maximum of 320.
I can confirm that with the municipal transactions team, but what I can say easily for the record and without any doubt is that the work was performed under this contract is already performed, and we're not asking the legislature for any additional future authorization under this contract. There may be something future presented that would be presented, not under this contract, and I can state that without any capitulation for the record.
I mean, according to our backup, it says the amount is increasing by a maximum of 60,000, so that the amended maximum shall be $320,000.
It may be that the original maximum, I would have to check this with the municipal transactions team. It may be that the original contract was for that amount, so that it's now rising to that. But again, this office, the county attorney's office, is not asking for additional authorization for future work, period, end of statement. That's not what this request is for. And I don't believe, if that's how it reads, I think that there may be something miscommunicated in the paper rather than what we're actually looking at. Because it's $60,000 of work that was completed, period, end of statement. That's what it is.
So if I'm working off of, and maybe this item needs to be tabled so we can get the proper answers. If I'm working off the $320,000 number, how many meetings have there been in the last 4 years to warrant that level of money?
I'm not counsel to the Board of Ethics, so I don't have that information. I'm just the outside counsel coordinator, and I could get the legislature that information, but I myself do not have it.
So doesn't the Board of Ethics, they meet what, quarterly, monthly?
Again, I'm not the counsel to the board, so I just wouldn't stand here and speculate. It would make me look even dumber than I look right now.
No, you don't look. You're doing your best, and we appreciate that. Yeah, I just think if it, presiding officer, it seems like there's some outstanding questions. If we can table this matter.
I think some of the before we get to tabling on some of the other questions.
Oh, okay,
So,
sure. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Sure.
Brian, so the other question is, why 4 years without coming to us?
So my understanding, legislator, is that there were a number of mini-bid processes during that time. So in the beginning of the last administration, again, not being an expert on the County Board of Ethics, this is just sort of from memory and public record, the Board of Ethics was reconstituted. So at the time it became reconstituted, the board had to meet and they actually had to make that selection. So in order for a procurement to be completed, the board itself actually had to convene, and my understanding is in the beginning of the prior administration, i.e. 4 years and 6 months ago, or 4 years and 10 months ago, that board was not fully convened. I understand that during that time there were periods by which it did convene, and Mr. Leventhal advised them, but there was never a time that they completed that RFP and then moved it forward to this body. So during that 4 years, the board was meeting. Mr. Leventhal was providing services, which he was advised of in writing, was at his own peril, and now we are here with this contract, if that answers your question.
To some extent, at what point was the hourly negotiated?
Well, that would have been pursuant to the county's RFQ, I believe. I'd have to go back and double check that, but that would be my understanding, that any contract let would be let to the county's RFQ panel. And that rate, when you say negotiated, it's not as if county attorney or anybody from county attorney gets on the phone and sort of directly negotiates it. There's a qualification process for that.
Right, but at what point was it set? Let's use that word instead.
I would have to look backwards, but whenever that original contract was during the prior administration, so more than 4 years and 10 months ago, whenever that was.
This is really not a good process here. I mean, it's self-evident, I think.
I am aware, yes.
Is the next one going to be done in advance?
The next one is currently in process. Like I said, I don't want to speak to what's going on with it because I'm not sure if the process is complete, and I know that that's sort of a delicate thing, but I know that it is directly in process. I am aware of that, and I can speak to that. And I believe it is in process and headed towards this body imminently.
Okay.
And I will mention for the record, relative to your questions, that the board, to my understanding, has been instructed not to have any substantive meetings until this body considers this contract, or the new contract, I should say.
Okay. Brian, we're going to do a motion to table in a moment, but so the Rules Committee will come back after the rest of the committees, and we can call you back up. So one of the things we want to know is how much, in fact, has he billed under the contract for those years. And, you know, we understand he's not just performing services while meetings are taking place. My understanding is if an issue gets sent to the committee, he will look, or the Board of Ethics, he'll look at something or render an opinion for them, correct?
That is my understanding. To my knowledge, I'm not sure that has happened in the last 10 months, although that would be confidential, of course. Okay. But in the past, it is my understanding that has gone on.
Okay. So you're going to get back to us with the numbers?
I mean, I can get you the exact number, but I know because I prepared this. This number that is sitting in front of you is very close to the exact dollar amount that's owed. It's either a slight bit more or a slight bit less, but it is not more, obviously, because this is the authorization that we're asking for. It's between $50,000 and $60,000.
Well, that's where the confusion is, because you're increasing the maximum amount to $320,000. So we need to know, what is it? Was it 50? Was it 60? Was it 320,000?
No, that I can speak to as we stand here now. I can clarify. I need to get clarification from the Municipal Transactions Group as to why it's going up to 320,000. That's the first I'm hearing that number. Okay. But as the person who sees the invoices, the amount that is owed is between 50 and 60,000, 100%.
All right. So maybe just get that clarification from us.
Absolutely.
We'll bring you back up later. Legislator Schaefer, before.
Hi, Brian. I just have a quick question for you, and I apologize if I missed it, if you said this already. Has there been a time now that there's been a lapse in the ability of the Ethics Board to issue an opinion on something because of an RFP not being fulfilled or anything?
No.
No? It's been, okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a time where his contract stopped and then if someone needed an opinion, they couldn't get it.
Mr. Leventhal has been humble in providing the services and understanding the risks that are associated with that, and in the meanwhile has been doing what needs to be done without taking on any unnecessary risk. But the board has been able to perform its business.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And one of the things I want you to come back with and tell us when the last amendment was.
I most certainly will.
Okay. Yep.
Quick question again, Brian. So if the maximum excuse me, if the maximum amount of the contract is going from $260 or going up $60,000, and from my estimation that would be the previous contract was at $260,000. Has all that money been spent?
If my logic is correct, yes.
Okay.
But that is what I will in fact check for the legislature. It's a valid question, and again, that 320 number is new to me. It is certainly not future work, so that I have to check on. I wouldn't speak to it.
And for the amount of money that he's been billed, the amount of money that he has billed the county, that if that is assuming that is correct, that 260, that contract was approved when?
That's the same question the presiding officer just asked, and I will get that answer. If I understood your question, the presiding officer's question are exactly the same, and
Yes.
what I understood you to be asking is please tell us about that prior amendment, and I will find out in between.
And then we need to understand how many. I understand that there may be times where he provides opinions as well, but I would like to get an understanding of how many meetings took place while that previous amendment was in place.
I don't know that information is going to be forthcoming in between now and when you untable the item, because it's going to require at least some phone calls on my part. I'm happy to do whatever you ask. Of course, the legislature, I do what you ask. I'm just not sure that information will be forthcoming in the next few hours here, but I will endeavor to get it.
I guess what I'm asking is that if he billed us or that this firm has billed us to the tune of $260,000 during a period of time, I'd like to know that it's more than 3 or 4 meetings a year.
Yes, we can confirm. I can confirm that. I have the. I mean, they're. I guess I should say this for the record. They're not subject to disclosure, but I myself am in possession of the invoices, so I can certainly look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Make a motion to table. Moved by Minority Leader Abraham, seconded by Legislator Bino. All in favor of tabling signify by saying aye. Aye. It's tabled. And we'll move on to the next one.
E118, are you?
Yes.
Yep, is a contract with Louis Joes Avalon Aviles for the Rochester matter. If I can answer any questions, I'm more than happy to do that.
Go jump in.
Yeah, I guess we all want to see, obviously, the crime lab, this contract go forward, but can you just give us an update of where we are with this process? I mean,
sorry, I have this as Louis Joes Rochester.
Oh,
118?
I'm sorry, Louis Jobs. Sorry,
Sorry, legislator.
I moved ahead. Sorry. Where are we with this particular contract? This particular case, I should say. Thank you.
So it's always a little difficult to speak publicly about litigation, so I will just speak what I know is publicly available, and then I would say if the legislator has further questions, I should answer those in executive or refer them to counsel. But just generally speaking, this case was in federal court, and the federal court did dismiss most of the claims. It was then removed to state court, more or less, and there was some expectation that it would be more or less ending in state court, and as of yet that is not materialized, so therefore we seek this amendment. The expectation was that once it got out of federal court there would be a hope it would go away. It did not. So it continues now, and we seek this amendment to continue litigating in state court.
So I mean, I don't know if this is something, and you tell me if I'm going down a path where we shouldn't be saying this on the record, but we're increasing the contract to $150,000 more. The new maximum is going to be $489,000. I guess what I'm asking is, are you going to have to come back to us for another $150,000 at a later point, or are we seeing this new maximum of $489,000 that's going to be the new ceiling?
I'm glad you asked that question, legislator. I believe that and this is the truth, we really try to make everyone abide by the budgets. I am the one who collects these budgets. I speak to council directly. I say, look, please be honest with us, because it is me who's going to be standing here explaining this again if we need it again. So the hope is no, but as anyone who litigates knows, litigation is not an exact science, and sometimes things happen. But that's the goal. That's truly the goal.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions on this contract? Nope. Why don't you move to E119, which is with the law office of Vincent McNamara?
Sure. This is a contract with the law offices of Vince McNamara for a matter called Ralha. There are several defendants, including the county. It is a very complex litigation and also involves significant injury to the plaintiff. Again, speaking on public record, the gentleman was crushed by a vehicle, so his injuries are very significant, and therefore it has been sent out due to these other legal complicating issues. If you have any questions, more than happy to answer the same.
Okay. Any questions?
So Brian, with this one, the original contract amount, if I'm understanding this correctly, was $250,000?
Yes, this particular contract, I believe when we came before the legislature, we had actually said that we would be back for more money. I'm nearly positive because I was involved in that process. And this case it's very complicated, again, for reasons that might be best explained in executive session. But we knew, and I believe we said at that time, that we would be seeking additional money on this case. There was an expectation of that. And I believe counsel made us aware from the get-go.
Okay. The only reason why we wanted to ask you questions about it is because the contract increase went up, threefold to 760. The increase, fourfold. The increase is $766,887.32. Very exact number, by the way. For a new maximum of $1,016,887.32. So it jumped up quite a bit. If I'm understanding this correctly, the legislature would not have a chance to see anything in terms of what's billable between now and the $1,016,887, but it just seems like it's jumping up quite a bit. That's why we wanted to make sure we got an understanding of one. Obviously, I'm thinking that this contract is enough to be able to provide outside counsel for this particular service. But then two, just to get an idea from you in terms of this. I mean, I don't know if we need to go into executive session at this time, but understanding the scope a little bit better.
So I'm going to answer your question, but I think actually it might be best to bring all of these into executive session. When I say all of these county attorney contracts, it appears that there may be a series of questions that probably would be privileged for purposes of the record, and I would be more than happy to answer them. I think that's probably the best way. I can say specifically in this instance, this case is very complicated, and not only is it complicated by the injury, there are a number of statutory insurance issues. And it's funny that you mentioned the exact budgeting, because counsel has been very good about budgeting for the county in the past, and he tries to be exact. So I think he's done that, and it does stick out as kind of funny, I have to admit. But I believe it's an honest number, so it's coming up high. But the truth is, this litigation is potentially very dangerous. So without going down any further rabbit holes that might be dangerous, I would say that's the best answer to your question. And let me add this. I'm the person who reviews these budgets. I go over them with the county attorney. I do not wish to stand here and be embarrassed. I don't wish to present something that is embarrassing. So if I thought that it wasn't reasonable, I wouldn't be standing here.
Okay. Brian, are you coming to our executive session later? Do we have an executive session?
I come wherever I'm invited, legislator, and you can put that on the record.
I mean, just in the interest of time, I mean, definitely we'll move forward. I mean, we trust your responses, and from that standpoint, we're prepared to vote for it at this moment. But if you can give us the brief in the executive session because of the sensitive matter, then if that's okay, Presiding Officer.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two other contracts for legal services with the West Group that might require some discussion in executive session also. One dealing with the crime lab, which we're about to bring up, and the other one with the family court in terms of the status. And so those might be also for executive session items.
Do you want to do those now before we consider these contracts, or do you want to do them later and pass them through?
Sorry,
Brian, we're talking about the other items
That are going to be for the Finance Committee.
for the Finance Committee. That's what we're talking about.
sorry.
Yeah, there's an assessment item, there's items involving...
Yeah, I'm only for the contract, sorry.
Yeah, what we'll do is we will wind up tabling these contracts and then hear your presentation in executive session with the others later on.
Very good. I remain
That's
available.
okay. I mean, I already called them already before, so. All right, so what we'll do is this. E119, E121, E122, those are the ones, the other two are with the West Group Law, and maybe the one with Vincent McNamara. We'll table those for now, discuss them in executive session later, and then come back.
Very good. Standing by, legislator.
All right. Motion by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Minority Leader Abrahams. All in favor of tabling those items signify by saying aye. Aye. The table, you still
Thank
have
you.
a couple more to go. Be ready's E120 and U7.
E120. Oh, I lost my train of thought. I apologize. We have two different Be Ready contracts on. I just want to make sure I speak to the right one.
The first one is with, to represent the county, to defend various matters as requested by the county attorney's office.
Very good.
Within the areas of employment, labor law, et cetera.
Very good. Thank you, legislator.
Sure.
So this is a contract with Be Ready, Fishbein, Hatter, and Donovan for labor services for county attorney and also for the Office of Labor Relations. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer this.
Okay, so this is not negotiations. This is handling grievances and those types of things, correct?
This is, I believe, all of that. I believe it includes all of that work. I'm not intimately involved, but I believe it includes all of that work.
Okay. All right. Meaning both negotiations and grievances, et cetera.
That is my understanding.
Okay, all right. Questions? Sure. Minority Leader Abrams?
Brian, this contract's for $3.5 million, right?
That is my understanding.
Sorry, sure. Apologize.
But no, I don't think it's 3.5 million. I don't think that's correct.
It says maximum amount 3.5 million.
Not the initial encumbrance, but that correct.
Okay. And this is for, just explain to me the time frame. This is work that Be Ready provided starting back from January?
No, some work has been performed as of January, but I do not believe it's significant. I can get you the exact number, but my understanding is that there were negotiations underway already and that Be Ready had stepped into some of those.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely want to.
It's just to be perfectly clear, it is not $3.5 million of old work.
No, that part I understand. It's whatever was utilized between that period of time, and then it's going forward, I believe, is it 5 years?
I can double check the term, but I believe so.
It just seems to me, why would we be doing a contract that's related to contract negotiations with labor agreements that extends in past the county executive's term?
Well, I think it's both. First, I wouldn't speak to anything about the term. That is something that a boring attorney like me probably wouldn't want to get involved in. But with regard to what Peter B's office is doing, my understanding is they're handling also grievances and the negotiations. So if the negotiations should complete at some point, there would still be ongoing issues with the unions that would need to be handled.
No, and I get that. It definitely, the ongoing issues that are related to whether the other labor agreements that need to be resolved, whether it's with the PBA, the correction officers, CSEA, whatever the union, collective bargaining unit is. However, I'm just asking a question because if I'm reading the contract correctly, the term ends in 2027.
That's my understanding.
The county executive term ends in 2025.
Well, I mean,
why would it go beyond? I mean, maybe that's a question that we have to ask to someone else, but why would it go beyond if it's related to labor agreements? Because it seems like not knowing what the future will bring in terms of the next county executive or the current county executive, it seems like it's tying that person's hands to having a contract to the tune of $3.5 million 2 years into that next person's term, or maybe not. Who knows?
I can't speak to why, but I can speak to that it is not tying anybody's hands because, of course, at any time, anybody cannot utilize the services that are there and available. So if the county executive, whoever that person would be in that moment, were to not use those services, then the money would not be drawn down on.
Okay. I see your point. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Delia.
Yeah, I mean, I would add one thing. The benefit that I could see of having a longer contract is it fixes the rates. So
That is also correct. There is a change in the rates here over in the new contract, so that is a very valid point, legislator. Thank you.
Legislator Durgee-Whitten.
I just think before we go forward with the $3.5 million possible exposure, we just need to have the answers of the questions that Minority Leader requested. And also, if you could take a look at the services described in the contract, it doesn't mention like negotiations with the unions or anything like that.
It's a very broad contract, the way it's written. A county attorney and OLR can assign work as needed. There have been prior contracts that have used this similar language, so that would sort of be the view on that. I'm happy to double check that for you, but that's my understanding. That I knew before I stepped up here.
Yeah, I think the service paragraph number 2, should state, especially if contract negotiations are included in this, and if the rate is the same for that. You know, we need to know all that before we approve it, because what could happen is we could approve this and then say, okay, we need you to negotiate this and they would say, no, that's a different rate or something. So we need to make sure that if you're saying up here that they're going to be negotiating with the unions for contracts, that that's actually covered under this, because it's not listed, and it really has to be.
I'm happy to go over it with the municipal transactions team, but I believe that there's an understanding of the services that are to be performed on the county side. If the legislature would seek clarification, of course, as always, we would do whatever the legislature would ask, but I don't think that we would have presented it with the concept that it was unclear.
I would read paragraph number 2. In my opinion, it doesn't, of the contract, it doesn't clearly state a number of the things that you mentioned up here as it covering. And it really, as we know with all contracts, it has to be in writing for it to be worth anything. So, again, I just think for $3.5 million, I'm not saying it's not worth it, but there's just a lot of questions for that much money.
So the only question that I have. I'm just looking at the language of the contract. I would just say, from my view, the services section is quite broad. I understand that there could be different readings under the law. I'm looking at the language, and to me, it appears pretty broad, but I understand the legislator may have its own opinion about that, and I totally understand that.
I mean, it's similar to what we just faced with the prior contract with Leventhal. You know, if it's not clearly stated in the contract, we can't say, oh, that should be covered. You know, we don't have it in writing. So we really need it as clear as possible before we go forward with anything. Thank you.
I would just point out, the administration's view of it is that the clause and such other services as required by the county attorney and Office of Labor Relations would include, basically, certainly the settlement negotiations and any labor-related matters.
We need it to state, if this is going to negotiate a contract or anything like that, it has to be listed in the services. Otherwise, like what just happened 10 minutes ago with the Leventhal contract is going to happen again. And
well, Frank Legislator, I think those are vastly different. They're not related.
As my counsel just mentioned, if you're saying it's going to negotiate contracts with unions, okay, And then I just looked at this, and it doesn't say that. It's just conflicting from your testimony to this contract. I don't want it to come back and hurt you, honestly, because you're up there saying that it will cover this, yet the services doesn't say that. So we can't go back, well, we can go back and check the record and say, well, the attorney from the county attorney's office said that it did, and it doesn't. So he might want more money for negotiating contracts. I think that we paid a lot more money for hourly, or who knows?
I think legislator, it's the legislator that's offering that testimony. I've made the opposite testimony. I've said that it appears to me that it's covered,
No.
but if the legislator
No, no,
wishes
no.
to clarify, that you may clarify.
When you got up here originally, we can read the record if you want, you mentioned what the contract did when presiding officer asked you. And one of the things you mentioned was negotiating with unions. So before we say that and we go on your word, and I'm doing this for your benefit, we need to have it in writing, because it is not what is matching with the contract in writing, the services. You can just give us an amendment of the services if you want.
I believe that there's a misunderstanding about the reading of the contract, legislator, and I don't believe that it's an accurate representation of what I've said.
Brian, I'm sorry. Brian, just refresh my memory. When we did the DeLaverson contract, we never did it actually. They never. But I recollect the language was very specific to what Mr. DeLaverson was going to do, wasn't it?
I was not involved in that, except that I remember standing here and I remember having to learn to pronounce Mr. DeLaverson's name, which I still think I haven't done.
Okay. I guess why I'm asking the question is because if Mr. B's firm, Be Ready and Fishbein, is going to provide services on behalf of collective bargaining and negotiating, to me there's been a precedent with the DeLaverson contract. Now, granted, DeLaverson then was hired by NIFA to be able to provide those services for them directly, but the precedent started with the previous county executive putting that forward in that contract.
Legislator, I could not agree more, and in fact there's a second contract with Lamont Barnowski, which is quite similar and was handled in quite a similar manner. So I agree with you that there is precedent to do this, that is not a new and novel concept.
I would also point out that DeLaverson was hired to do one thing and one thing only, which is to negotiate. And what Be Ready is doing here is negotiating, but there are also the myriad grievances and challenges and legal procedures that go on with all of our collective bargaining units is included within this. So I personally don't have a problem with the language of the contract.
Brian, what was the cost of the DeLaverson contract?
To my understanding, and I'm trying to be very frank, I honestly don't remember. What I remember is that this body didn't pass it.
$25,000 a month, whether he worked every day that month or did nothing. Taxpayers are still paying for that.
Which we voted against. So $25,000 per month, whether he did something or did nothing. This contract is for $3.5 million, correct?
Correct, but that work will not be paid, and it will only be paid in arrears. It will only be paid if Mr. B or his firm actually performs work.
So the difference is DeLaverson was paid regardless, as we said, but this contract, he's only going to be paid in arrears.
I would say that's at least one difference, but yes.
Okay. So we don't have a concrete understanding or idea of what we're going to pay Mr. P. Based on the amount of work that Mr. B does. What's his hourly rate in comparison to what Mr. DeLaverson's hourly rate?
His hourly rate is $275 per hour. For partners, I can double check the associate rate, but I know for partners it's $275 an hour.
So it's $275 an hour. How would that compare to the DeLaverson contract?
Well, of course, as pointed out by the presiding officer, DeLaverson wasn't charging an hourly rate at all. He just wanted to charge a retainer to be present.
And no hours were provided by DeLaverson?
No.
I understand. So $275, how does that compare to previous contracts over the years?
I will say, actually, just to answer your question directly, it is a slight increase. And when I say slight, they're going from $225 to $275, which is all in the paperwork it's already filed with the clerk. When I say they, that would be Peter B. But anybody who practices law in this room knows that those are very, very modest rates. They really are.
Okay. So I guess, I mean, based on your testimony, our concern is going to continue to be making sure that we outline the services in the contract. I mean, obviously, if this is something that the administration doesn't want to do, we understand, but going off of what previous administrations have done, they have outlined it very clearly, the services that are going to be provided, especially as it pertains to labor negotiations. Yeah. I'm just reading through it again as I'm talking. I just don't.
It doesn't say it.
All right. I don't have nothing further. All right. Sign off, sir.
Okay.
And then the last one is going to be U722.
Right.
And this is for a case called Fainresh. This is also with Peter B. Reddy, Fishbone, Hatter, and Donovan. This case is a U because it is below $25,000. It is a very small matter.
Okay.
No other questions on E120. I would like to put a motion forward to table that matter.
Is there a second? Seconded by Legislator DeReggie Whitten. All in favor of the motion to table signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Nay. Motion to table fails. There's still one more contract to consider, which is with Berkman Hennick, E124.
Yes.
It's a case of Rothschild versus the County of Nassau.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is for Rothschild. It is a new case. It was mini-bid and procured. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions on this contract? Hearing none, I think you're off the hook for now. We'll see you again.
Standing by.
Okay. Well, you're going to do more than stand by, right? I mean, you're going to...
Of course, I'll go look at the information now.
Okay. All right, so I pulled the ones that we tabled out, and I'm going to call the other contracts at this time, actually. They include A44, 2022, E84, A39, A40, E128, U6, E125, E126, E127, E118, E120. All right, I'm going to actually take that out. This is not going to include E120 and U7. So I'll go from the beginning again. A44? Oh, U7, I'm sorry. Okay. Let me just clarify. I'll go from the beginning. A44, E84, A39, A40, E128, U6, E125, E126, E127, E118, U7, and E124. Those contracts are before the legislature. Any debate or discussion? Any public comment on those?
Mita J. Meriday. With regard to this whole process, I just challenge sometimes the rationale. Well, I understand the rationale. I just challenge how it goes out, and then we don't hear about these things until well after the fact, and the money, as well as the horse is already out of the barn. I have more issues with the contracts that were tabled at this point. Those of you are going to approve or disapprove. It's not going to positively impact the continued disservice within the underrepresented communities. I'm just asking those of you who are representing our interests, since we pay the second highest property taxes in the country, just to be mindful of the limited resources that you seem to continue to distribute to friends, relatives, and others who are not providing the services to the communities at large. Just looking at today's headline about helping out Long Island's homeless veterans, and we have a viable facility that's underutilized at the NUMC that could address that. These are the things that challenge me. My questions have to do with a number of these contracts or a number of the previous contracts, and we're talking about legal contracts. And most residents don't know how much money we expend in lawsuits against the county. Just looking at that last contract that was tabled with regard to the B, I didn't see anybody who closely resembled me or my interests on that firm. The lack of diversity, the lack of inclusion, and lack of equity in our veteran population, in our minority population, and with women continues to appall me. And the fact that there's very little that comes out of this body in support of that continues to trouble me. So that's why I wanted to stand today, because it seems that my voice, it may carry, but it doesn't really resonate to actually make much of a difference. But that doesn't stop me from throwing the rock into the stagnant water to ideally create a ripple. And for anyone who might be looking for possibly some diversity, because professional services continues to be an arena that lacks diversity, inclusion, and equity, someone might want to look into the Minority Corporate Counsel Association, which is 25 years old. It's not a minute old, but they represent entities that are focused on hiring and retaining corporate counsel of color and diverse representation. So that's just one area. But again, there are subcontracting opportunities that this county continues to fail to look into to bring some representation that is more diverse and inclusive. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further debate or discussion among the legislators? Hearing none, all in favor of the contracts I called signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? They carry unanimously. Now, E-120 is the contract with Be Ready and Fishbein. All in favor of that contract signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that contract passes by a vote of 4-3. We're going to put the Rules Committee in recess. We will be returning to some of those contracts later, but in the meantime, the other committees will go. Which one's first, Brian? Public Works is next.
Great. At this time, I'll call the Public Works Committee to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chairman. Legislator Carrier Solage. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Ranking Member Sela Bino. Legislator James Kennedy. Here. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Here. Vice Chairman John Dufresne. Here. Chairman C. William Gaylord III.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. So there are 4 items on the agenda today, which are clerk items number 342-22 through 345-22. Clerk item 342-22 is an ordinance to adopt the capital budget for the County of Nassau for the first year of the 4-year capital plan to commence on January 1st, 2023, pursuant to the provisions of Section 310 of the County Government Law of the County of Nassau. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Kennedy, second by Legislator Bino. I see we have Commissioner Arnold at the podium already. The items before us. Commissioner, all yours.
Good afternoon, Ken Arnold, Commissioner of Public Works. Items 342 through 345 are the filing of the capital plan. 342 and 343 are required as there was no plan approved last year. So 344 is the 2023 capital budget ordinance, and 345 is the 2023-2026 capital plan resolution. The capital budget for 2023 is being proposed at $325 million of county general funds, non-county funds of $52 million, sewer, stormwater, 156 for county funds, and non-county funds $31 million. As to the budget over the 23 to 26 period, the budget in total is $1.6 billion for general county capital and $567 million for SSW.
Okay, any debate or discussion? Any public comment? Ms. Meriday?
Again, Meta J. Merida. Again, sadly, the public does not have the same access to the resources as well as staffing as all of you. Could not quite hear all of the numbers that Commissioner Arnold put out there, but the 52, I believe he said, million in non-county funding, I'd be curious as to whether that is state and federal funding. Also tied to the fact that I constantly hear that, quote unquote, the county is in compliance with state and federal regulations, but I need to see what that compliance measures into actual contract dollars to service disabled minority and women veterans when there are state as well as federal guidelines and mandates. Again, we continue to put out millions of dollars annually, and I'm curious as to why we did not have a capital plan previously that we now are, well, you all, allegedly in my interest and those of other taxpayers, will be voting on to follow through when there were contracting dollars. There's work being done all over the county. So there was some kind of plan that was being followed. Someone was getting paid, but unfortunately, those payments are not going, again, to service disabled minority and women businesses who are losing their homes in a disproportionately higher number. And again, you can point to the Newsday article about someone who was previously homeless who is now going around trying to address Long Island's homelessness. So I'd like to see not just rhetoric or something on the county records that states, oh yes, we are in compliance. I want to know, and if Newsday can write these articles about the homeless, why aren't we writing articles about who's actually getting the funding, and if they in fact have homes on Long Island or they live outside of Nassau County, while our local residents, particularly our veterans and minority communities who are struggling, are not getting the dollars. These are not the questions that I'm hearing asked by the elected bodies here. So I'm curious, being this is the day before the election, if the tenor goes one way, you know, we're still going to suffer no matter who gets into the spots, it seems like. It doesn't make a difference, whatever the majority is, because the majority of the people out here are still struggling. So those are the questions that I need answered. I want a detailed report. If you get it, fine. Then get me a copy. Get those of us out here a copy of who is getting contracts in the diverse communities that are mandated by state and federal law if we're using money outside of the county. Because the county's program itself, as far as diversity and inclusion, is non-existent. It is. But if we want to continue to pay out grievances and lawsuits and hire more friends and relatives with their law firms, then that's on you. But the rest of us should not have to suffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murday. Any other public comment? All right, so I guess we're going to do these one at a time. 342-22 is before us, so all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. 343-22 is an ordinance to adopt a four-year capital plan to commence January 1st, 2023, pursuant to the provisions of 310 of the county government law. May I have a motion? So moved by Legislator Salacious, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. Ken, you've already been on the record about that one as well, so do you want to speak any more to 343-22? No further comment from the commissioner. Okay. Any debate or discussion amongst us? Any public comment on that item? All in favor signify by saying aye. All right. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously, and we'll move to rules. Clerk, item 340-22 is an ordinance to adopt a capital budget for the County of Nassau for the first year of the four-year capital plan to commence January 1st, 2023, pursuant to Section 310 of the County Government Law of Nassau County. We have a motion moved by Legislator Giuffre, seconded by Legislator Drucker. This item's now before us. Commissioner Arnold, do you have anything further to add? Okay. Any other debate or discussion? Any public comment? Sure. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That item passes unanimously. Clerk, item 345-22 is an ordinance to adopt a four-year capital plan to commence January 1st, 2023, pursuant to Section 310 of the Government Law of Nassau County. from Commissioner Arnold on this item already. So I'll make a motion. Moved by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Kennedy. That item before us. Any debate or discussion? None? Any public comment to that specific item? All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That item is going to pass to rules as well. No other business before the committee. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Kennedy. All in favor? Say aye. Committee is now adjourned. Will be followed by Public Safety. Thank you, Commissioner Arnold.
Good afternoon. At this time, I will call the Public Safety Committee to order, and I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Public Safety Committee roll call. Legislator Deborah Muley. Legislator Sheila Bino. Ranking Member Delia Dirigi-Witten. Legislator John Ferretti. Legislator Mazi Palip. Vice Chairman Stephen Rhodes. Chairwoman Denise Ford. We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you very much, sir. There are two items on the agenda today, which is clerk item number 353-22 and 354-22. Clerk item number 353-22 is an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the medical examiner. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Pilip, seconded by Legislator Rhodes. The item is before us. Who is here from the administration?
Hi, good afternoon. Karen Dooling, Assistant Director, Crime Laboratory. So this is a New York State grant, the 2022 Arson Laboratory Improvement Program grant for $5,000. It's a no match. It will be used for supplies for the laboratory's fire debris arson program.
Thank you. Any debate or discussion? No? Any public? See none? Thank you very much. Okay. All those in favor of passing this item, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? The item passes unanimously. Clerk item number 354-22 is an ordinance supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Fire Commission. May I have a motion? Moved by Legislator Dirigi-Witten, seconded by Legislator Bino. This item is before us. Who is here from the administration? Oh. Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon. This is the hazmat. This is a state hazmat grant. It's the fiscal year 2020 that we apply for on behalf of the hazardous materials response teams, including the county fire marshal's hazmat team. It also encompasses Nassau County Police ESU, the Hicksville Fire Department, the Wanto Fire Department, and the Franklin Square Fire Department.
All right, thank you very much. Any debate or discussion?
Sure. Michael Utaro, Chief Fire Marshal.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Sorry about that.
Any public? I see none. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of passing this item, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The item passes unanimously. As there is no other business before this committee, may I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Legislator Ferretti, seconded by... Oh, I did. You didn't hear me? Okay. We're here. Oh. No, no, we'll let her speak. She didn't hear me say it. I did say public, but she probably didn't hear me. Sorry about that.
Yes. Hi, Susan Goddard, New York Civil Liberties Union. You were speaking about public comment about each of those items. Is that correct? So I have a question, a couple of questions. Number one, the agenda that was posted for the Public Safety Committee had the whole list of the stuff that the Rules Committee just went over. So I had something to say about the B. I know, I get it. You guys aren't taking it up. Your agendas are a little messed up on the website. Okay. The other thing is that what I would like to say is that we need to talk about oversight of the police department. We put out a report monitoring police reform after 2 years after
Right.
George Floyd. You all got the report. Please let me do this, okay? Well, there's only three of us here.
But you can only speak on this particular item.
I don't understand why. This is the Public Safety Committee. It's about oversight. We have a report here that shows that there is no oversight being done at this point of the Nassau County Police Department. My question is, they were supposed to come and report. They're 9 months past when they were supposed to report.
I don't mean to cut you off, but this is the rules of the legislature to discuss this. But we do have scheduled, and it will be posted, a public hearing on the police reform plan, and Commissioner Ryder will be in attendance.
And so what you're telling me...
And at that point, excuse me, and at that point, you then will be able to ask questions over the oversight of the police department.
And may we request that the police commissioner have to put out his report before he reports out?
There has been a report that it's already been issued, and I think that you should then take it up with either the clerk of the legislature or the presiding officer, and they'll direct you to where it is. Okay?
Yeah, I would also like other people to be able to speak on this. This has never happened before.
Excuse me. We are discussing the issue right now with the Fire Commission and the money that they received through New York State grants. In regard to the various fire departments, that is the item before us. If you have something to say about that, we are not discussing the police department at this point.
I believe that you were just adjourning, so.
Right.
Okay, well, it would be a shame if we have to wait for Commissioner Ryder to report in order for us to comment on policing in Nassau County.
It's already been reported. I'm sure that you should be able to get a copy. Okay?
The update has been reported?
I think there was one that was issued, and I think we'll reach out to Commissioner Ryder. I'll let you know.
Recently?
Okay. I will let you know.
The website is down. The police reform website is down. We have no way of knowing if the police commissioner which is why I'm standing at this microphone right now.
Right. I will reach out to Commissioner Ryder to find out what it is, but at this point, we're adjourning this meeting.
Will he be reporting to the Public Safety Committee at some point?
I already explained to you that we have scheduled a public hearing in regard to the police reform plan, and this is where we're ending it, and Commissioner Ryder will be in attendance. Motion to adjourn this meeting. Second, Legislator Ferretti, seconded by Legislator Georgie Whitten. Thank you. Health Department is next. All those in favor of adjourning? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you. Health Department.
Call the Health and Social Service Committee to order and ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Health and Social Service roll call. Legislator Joshua Lafazan. Legislator Arnold Drucker. Ranking Member Delia DeRicci Witten. Legislator C. William Gaylord III. Legislator Laura Schaefer. Thank you. Vice Chairwoman Mazi Palip.
Here.
Chairwoman Rosemarie Walker.
Here.
We have a quorum, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, there are two items before us. Clerk, items 351 and 352 are both ordinances supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance in connection with the Health Department. May I have a motion, please? Legislator Gaylor, seconded by Legislator Lafazan. All set.
All set. Good afternoon. Andy Simone, Nassau County Department of Health. Item 35122 is actually two items. One is the supplemental appropriation in the amount of $118,144 for the children and youth with special health care needs. This is funded by New York State Department of Health. This program provides information and referral to families of children up to age 21 who have special health care needs. Any questions?
Any questions on that part of clerk item 351? Okay, and part two?
Part two is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $966,202 for the Early Intervention Administration Grant received from the New York State Department of Health. Early Intervention is a mandated program that identifies toddlers and infants 0 to 3 who are at risk for delayed development. EI provides services to ensure that eligible infants and toddlers with developmental delays and disabilities receive appropriate services.
And this is an area where we've said we've seen an increase in, correct?
Yes, especially since COVID.
Since COVID, okay. Any other questions from the legislators? Legislator Drucker?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Does it define what developmental disabilities it includes?
It's a wide range.
It's a wide range.
Yep.
So, could be...
they may not be hitting milestones. Sometimes they have medical diagnosis.
Would hearing deficiencies
Certainly.
be included?
Certainly.
Thank you.
And these are usually detected by like a child's pediatrician, or even if a parent were to, feel that sometimes it's their second child or whatever, and or they have, no other children of that age, and they feel like their child is way behind.
Yes.
So then they just reach out to a pediatrician, who then refers them to the county.
Correct. Or parents can call.
Parents can call as well. Okay. Any other questions from the legislators? Any public comment?
Good afternoon, Nita J. Maraday. With regard to the two grants, I didn't get the amount of the first one. Just concerned if we're looking at the funding that we're providing to children and youth and not shortchanging, again, because the increased needs within our vulnerable population. And are we identifying any additional resources if the county is, more involved with providing funding and resources in other areas until crisis hits, and then all of a sudden you have people saying, oh, we needed to have more money. I'm thinking if we put more money into the system more proactively versus reactively, we might get better outcomes. Also, the $966,000, I believe she said, with regard to early intervention, does that tie into anything that has to deal with the maternal mortality rate for black women, which is 3 to 4 times higher? So if black women are dying in childbirth, there's a number of children that are now motherless, and we don't know what that impact is on that child early on. And if the health department is actively and aggressively addressing that situation, because it is impacting mothers of color here in Nassau County. So I'm just concerned if there was an increase, as well as the resources that are going towards the special youth component in the first scenario, as well as the early intervention. How broad is this early intervention support system, and is it inclusive and addressing issues that are impacting, again, underserved communities in Nassau County? Thank you.
And do you have any information on?
So I know this is a topic that's, well covered, but I will get the exact data from the Director of Maternal Child Health on your question. Okay?
Okay, and if you could share that with all of us
Sure.
on the committee. Thank you. Okay, and clerk, item 352-22?
Sure, that is a supplemental appropriation for the Bathing Beach Water Quality Monitoring and Notification Program for the amount of $58,350. This is New York State Department of Health funding and is mandated through the New York State Sanitary Code. This program provides beach water quality monitoring at 56 permitted beaches in the county. Public notification is required when there is a closure or an opening. Any questions?
No, really just a comment on my behalf. I thank you for this past summer. It was often that we got information regarding beach closures. And let's hope that next summer is a better summer and don't have to close the beaches as much. But
You're
thank you.
welcome, and I will pass that along to the program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Any public comment? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of clerk items 351-22 and 352-22 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Then they will both move on to finance. No other business before the committee. We have a motion to adjourn by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Lafazan. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Okay, it's adjourned, and we're moving on to finance.
All right, I'm going to call the Finance Committee to order. And Mr. Pulitzer, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, sir. Finance roll call. Legislator Joshua Lafazan. Legislator Carrie A. Salage. Ranking Member Arnold Drucker. Legislator Rosemary Walker.
Here.
Legislator Thomas McKevitt.
Here.
Vice Chairman John Ferretti.
Here.
Chairman Howard Copel.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Okay. We have a number of items which have already gone through some previous committees, and they have been subject of consent by the majority minority, do not require any further debate or discussion. And those, I will read those through, and those are numbers 342, 343, 344, 345, 351, 352, 353, 354. Motion on those items by Ms. Walker, seconded by Mr. Lafazan. All those in favor of those consent items, please so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are unanimous. Thank you. Now, we have a few items that are not on consent. We'll start with number 348, which is a resolution providing for the issuance of a warrant directing the treasurer of the county to pay to the supervisors, so towns and villages, etc. And that money is for mortgage tax collections. And motion
So
on,
moved.
and motion on that by Ms. Walker, and seconded by Mr. Drucker. and I think we all know what that is. Do we have any debate or discussion on that item? No? Hearing none, all in favor of number 348, please so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is unanimous. Thank you. Number 355. 355 and 356 are both resolutions to author the transfer of various appropriations. And there's a motion on that by Mr. McKevitt and seconded by Mr. Drucker again. Anyone here from the administration on those items?
Hi, how are you? Karen Dooling, Assistant Director, Crime Lab. I'm here for 355. This is a board transfer of $24,000 for the medical examiner's 2020 New York State Homeland Security Grant. It's a transfer of funds from the supply line to the equipment line to cover hardware and software costs related to the upgrade of the department's case management system.
Do we have any questions? Any comment on that item? Thank you. What about 356? Is that not yours? Okay. Do we have anyone here on 356? Can we get someone here on 356? I guess we'll have to table that one.
Is Chris coming up?
Good afternoon, Andy Persick, Office of Management and Budget.
And
Item 356 is a board transfer between grant funds for about $1,513 from the salary line to fringe benefits and general expenses.
All right, any questions, any comment? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of, thank you, Andy, numbers 355 and 356, please so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are unanimous. Now, there's a motion to suspend the rules as we have an addendum to deal with, and that motion is made by Mr. Ferretti and seconded by Mr. Solage. All those in favor of suspending the rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The rules are suspended. Now, on the addendum, number 371 is supplemental to the annual appropriation ordinance and to modify certain departmental budgets.
So moved.
And that motion, that is moved by Ms. Walker and seconded by Mr. Drucker.
Andy Persick, Office of Management and Budget. This item is a transfer between appropriations between different departments. We're moving money in to cover shortages that we're probably going to have in different areas. It's just part of the quarterly adjustments that we do here.
Any questions? Any public comment? All those in... On this item, please, only. If you have something else... Yeah, well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you follow them. Good.
And I'll definitely try to stay within 3 minutes. Mita J. Meriday, so I've gotten the name part out of the way. Question with regard to this particular item. I would like to know, in fact, why were these now called shortages that you kind of knew about if you went through a budget process? And I realize, Andy, that you were asked a lot of questions during the budget process that had nothing to do with what you actually do. But I'm just curious as to, you know, this is not standard for most part from an accounting practice standpoint. What accounts are these funds being moved from, and what would be the impact on those accounts if that was funding for that particular account to adjust what you need to do now? That is my question as it pertains to this particular item. Is that not correct, sir? Thank you.
That is fine. Thank you for your comment. All those in favor of this item, please so indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that item is unanimous. No, this is not a question and answer session. Thank you. All right, now we have several items which I'll call together, which will require executive session. And those items are numbers 349, which is to settle the claims of New York Community Bank. And on the addendum, we have number 359, which is to settle the claims of, which is to settle the claims of the county against several defendants, Watson Laboratories, Teva activists, and several others. That item is moved by Ms. Drucker and seconded by Mr. Lafazan. Now, I'm going to take a motion for executive session made by Mr. Ferretti and seconded by Mr. McKevitt. All those in favor of executive session, please so indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We're in executive session, at which time we're also going to discuss the several tabled contracts, which were E-119, 121, and 122. And all the members of the Rules Committee are invited to attend as well. Okay, I guess finance, we're back. We have two items to vote on. And those two items are, let's see here, is items number 349 and 359. And we've discussed that in executive session. All those in favor of those two items, please so indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Those two items pass unanimously. Mr. Ferretti moves to adjourn. Mr. Solarz seconds the motion to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned, and I guess we're back to rules.
Call the Rules Committee back into order, session. First item that I'm going to call is, actually, I'm going to call E11622 first. Need a motion to untable. Moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. And this is the 11th all contract. The motion to untable. I don't know if they understand. So this is a motion to untable 11th all contract. All in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay. The motion to untable passes by a vote of 4 to 3. Then we're going to vote on the contract itself. So all in favor of E-116 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, passes by a vote of 4 to 3. Now we need a motion to untable E-119, contract with the law office of Vincent McNamara, and E-121 and E-122 with the West Group Law PLC. Moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Bino. All in favor of untabling signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. And now on the contracts themselves, 119, 121, 122. All in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? They carry unanimously. Need a motion to suspend the rules. Moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Legislator Schaefer. All in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, so we have the consent calendar, items that went to other committees. It's been agreed by both sides. No further debate or discussion is required on these items. 342, 22, 343, 344, 345, 348, 349, 351, 352, 353, 354, 355, 356, and then on the addendum, 359 and 371. Any further debate or discussion? Any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carry unanimously. Item 346 is a resolution to confirm the county executive's appointment of Richard Corbett to the position of Commissioner of the Office of Emergency Management. Motion by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell. Mr. Corbett will be invited to appear before us at the next legislative meeting. If you want to arrange to meet with him separately, obviously Chris will work that out with you. But in the meantime, this is just teeing it up for the full legislature. Any debate or discussion? Any public comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. 347 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an amendment to the municipal cooperation agreement between the county and the town of Hempstead for monitoring piping plover nesting areas at Nickerson Beach. Moved by Deputy Presiding Officer Coppell, seconded by Legislator DeRiggi Whitten. Hi, Darcy.
Good afternoon again, Darcy Bellier, Parks Commissioner. As you mentioned, we're amending a municipal cooperation agreement that dates back to 2015, expired at the end of last year. I did present it to the town in February, and they just passed it on September 20th on their town board. But this IMA basically allows the town of Hempstead to continue to conduct monitoring and habitat management for the piping plovers and other endangered species that nest at Nassau County's Nickerson Beach. We're exercising the first of 2 one-year renewals. Second one's already in the works for 2023, with a term of January 1st, 2022 to the end of this year. The cost to the county is just $12,000, and as I mentioned, it'll be retroactive. The work's already been performed for this year. We're beyond the nesting stage.
Okay. That's to the shape.
Just have a quick question. What department at the town manages that?
Conservation and wildlife in the town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it was on the agendas, but it was tabled several times.
Okay. Sure.
I want to thank you for doing this. My parents actually drive down there to hear them or something every year. It's a big DeRiggi
It really
outing.
is a big deal. I'm told that professional photographers come from all over the world to
They
take
do.
pictures of these birds.
I've seen it, yeah. It's very cool.
I started a new job this year and have time to go see the birds, but next year.
I haven't seen them either.
All right. Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. All in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Item 350 of 2022, a resolution amending Resolution 448 of 2001, as amended, entitled Designated Banks and Trust Companies for the Deposit of Monies Received by the County Treasurer. Moved by Legislator Schaefer, seconded by Legislator Rhodes. Hello, David.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies. So the Treasury's Department, we do a annual check of all the banks that we do business with. So this year, we're basically removing some companies that's been merged or acquired by larger companies, and we're keeping some of the companies that merge with bigger companies who are already on our list. And we're adding 2 additional banks, Hanover Bank, which is a local bank based in Mineola, New York. We wanted to make sure that we have some exposure to smaller banks, community banks, to give them some of the county's deposits. Of course, they have to be competitive with the national banks as well. We're also adding U.S. Bancorp, which is a large bank based out of the Midwest. So basically, just housekeeping items. If you have any questions.
Just a quick one. So the qualification is, doesn't matter if they have a state or a federal charter?
No, as long as our deposits are safe and liquid, that all of our deposits have to be, backed by securities or treasuries, and also it's liquid. And then we try to maximize the yield on our deposits. So these banks that we're allowed to deposit and make sure that they're competitive with other banks.
And what is the typical float overall? Just kind of curious.
Float?
Well, the typical amount that's sitting in these accounts overall.
Well, it depends on the size of the bank. If it's a big bank,
no, I said overall. Overall, across
all of our
the banks.
deposits combined,
Yeah.
$2.3 billion.
Okay, all right. That's more than pocket change, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick question. Hi. Hanover Bank, how many branches do they have? I didn't even know they were still around, to be honest.
They have 9 branches.
They do.
One in Mineola, and there's a few branches in the city.
Are they only in New York, or are they
They're only in New York.
They are.
Community bank.
Okay, great.
And, we try to diversify our deposits to smaller banks if we can help them.
Okay.
How often do you do this?
We do this housekeeping every year.
Once a year?
This is my first year here, so I'm going to be doing this every year.
It's once a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, we have 20 banks on the list, and every year we reevaluate. We also do background checks on all of the banks, make sure that they're in.
This is for just those 2 banks, or it's for all those banks?
Well, we go through the list of banks, and then we do our due diligence on them every year.
No, this item now.
This item, we took off a couple of banks, and we added 2 banks.
And that's for all of them. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any debate or discussion? Any public comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. 357 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the Freeport School District. Moved by Legislator Rhodes, seconded by Legislator Bino. Any debate or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? 358 is a resolution authorizing the county executive to execute an intermunicipal agreement between the county and the town of Hempstead. Moved by Minority Leader Abrahams, seconded by Legislator DeReggie Whitten. Any debate or discussion? I see Inspector Fields. You've been here all day. I don't know if you want to jump in and say a word or two.
William Field, Inspector with the Police Department. No, it's pretty simple, just a municipal agreement between the town of Hempstead and the county to have some auxiliary police vehicles park at the Echo Park location.
Okay, all right, easy enough. Thank you. Any debate or discussion? Any public comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carries unanimously. Legislator Rhodes makes a motion to adjourn, seconded by Legislator Bino. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.